Class, welcome to our last history lesson for quarter two. Good to be with you guys. Hope you've been having a good week. I've been able to talk with some of you guys, which is awesome, but some I don't get to interact with you very much, so I hope you're having a wonderful week. This is our last chapter before we finish medieval Europe, and then you have your unit assessment. So let us dive into this. All right. It's been a great quarter. I hope you guys have been having fun. Hope you had we had a good Thanksgiving break, and then we'll have an awesome Christmas break. So let's finish this week strong. This is our last week. So do what you need to do to make sacrifices and be disciplined, to set aside things that are distracting you, to get caught up and stay on top of your work so that you can enjoy your Christmas break, pass all of your classes, and be on a good path to passing fourth grade to move on to fifth grade. So let's dive into chapter 21, the Black Death. Okay, so why do you guys think, or what do you think the name Black Death means? And why would you use black? What are the first things that kind of come to your mind? Maybe it's black because it's dark or very sad. Is it black because it makes people like their skin turn dark? Maybe it, like kind of like a welt or a bruise. You know how when you get a bruise, it turns kind of black and purple. And then why death? I think probably something causes some terrible death. That's what I'm thinking. All right, so what we're going to learn that the Black Death was a widespread plague or disease that killed large numbers of Europeans. All right. Most recent chapters that we've covered topics about two countries in Northern and Western Europe, England and France. All right. And we're going to be paying attention to Italy. Where is our map? Here. We have Rome, Italy, right here. And then also Florence, which is northern Italy. This was a bustling city of approximately 100,000 people. So a lot of people lived here with thriving wool and banking industries. So wool like for clothes and banking for money that started in the 1300s. So 50 years later, after the Black Death had after the Black Death had swept through Europe around the 1300s, the population had decreased to about a half. So half of 100,000 would be 50,000. Good job, guys. So that's kind of what we're going to be learning about, is this Black Death and how it swept through Europe. Okay, so let's call attention to the big question. Okay, well, let's read it together. Why do you think having a smaller population in Europe helped improve working conditions for serfs, as well as weaken the feudal system? And remember, the feudal system is land given to knights and lords and noblemen for their loyalty and service to the higher lord or king. Okay, so as we read, let's look for answers to why having a smaller population in Europe actually helped improve the conditions for serfs and how it weakened the feudal system. Why would a smaller population weaken the feudal system? Okay, so let's start reading, and please follow along with me so that you can answer any question that I ask you and that you will be able to be prepared for your unit assessment. Chapter 21, the Black Death, a terrible way to die. Imagine that you are a 10-year-old child. Well, some of you guys are 10, living in Florence, Italy. We are not living in Florence, but imagine you're living in Florence, Italy in the year 1348. You have been sent by your parents to a nearby market. As you wander about the busy marketplace, you overhear people talking. It started in Sicily, one man says. No, says another man. It started in the east. The Tartars began it. The first man waves his hand impatiently. No matter where it started, it's killed most of Sicily, and now it's coming here. What on earth are these people talking about? You pull on the jacket sleeve of one of them. Sir, you ask. What are you talking about? The two men glance at one another. The man in the jacket turns and looks at you with stern eyes. It's the Black Death, child. It's coming. Now run home and tell your parents to get you and your brothers and your sisters out of town. That would be kind of scary, huh? Let's look at this picture really quick. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can get a better glance of all of it. Okay, so people in the markets of Florence in 1738, reading in the caption right here, would likely have discussed the Black Death. These people talking to the markets are like, it's coming, the Black Death is coming. Okay, before much time had passed, you would learn a great deal more about the Black Death. All around you, people would die. Some would die very quickly, almost as though they were poisoned. Others would linger for 3 days or even for 6, most developing ugly growths in their armpits. Large red and black spots would appear on their skin. Some would fall into a deep sleep. Okay, so what was the Black Death and when did it occur? Okay, so we're going to look for answers for that coming up on the next page. And then let's also look for what portion of the European population died from the Black Death. Okay. So what was the Black Death and when did it occur? And how much of the European population died from it? So those are some questions to answer as we read and look for as we read this. So nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The man who feared the worst turned out to be right. The Black Death did come to Florence, and it killed more than half the people in the city. This plague, which here is our first vocabulary word, right? I didn't miss one, correct? Good. And remember, you can get extra credit in history for this chapter if you take a vocabulary sentence and use it in an own sentence that you have created. And remember to use these definitions from the book. You can find the definitions in each chapter or at the end of the book in the glossary. Okay? I don't want anybody to use Google to just copy and paste because this is one way I can tell that you are actually in the book, either following along with me in this lesson, and those that aren't following along probably won't hear this, but I want the definitions from the book. So a plague is a highly contagious, usually fatal disease that affects large numbers of people. So with that definition, maybe this coronavirus is kind of like a plague, right? So this plague seems to have started in Asia, which I think the coronavirus started right in Asia, China. So in the 1320s. It is thought to have been carried by fleas nesting in the fur of rodents. Rodent is a non-mammal, such as a rat, mouse, gerbil, or hamster. So these fleas nestled in these rodents, these little rats or mouse or gerbils, and then they got onto these ships and brought these infected fleas into the cities in southern Europe, especially to Sicily in 1347. The next year, it spread inland and around the Mediterranean. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Sorry, guys. It attacked southern England, France, Italy, Spain, and northern Africa and Greece. There was still hope that it would stop, but eventually it found its way into northern Germany and northern England, Scotland, and the Scandinavian countries of Norway and Sweden. The Black Death reached all the way to Iceland and Greenland. Dang, it really spread. Okay, and here is a picture. So some people thought the Black Death was a punishment for sins. They hit themselves with whips to try to make up for anything they had done wrong. These look like religious people that are trying to resolve their sins to hopefully get rid of the Black Death. Okay, so what was the Black Death and when did it occur? Started in the early 1300s, right? Early to mid 1300s, and it was transmitted by what? What little buggers? Fleas, right? Little bugs nesting in the fur of rodents. Okay. Okay, disappearing villages. Wait 1 second. What portion of European population died from the Black Death? That was the other question that we wanted to ask. About 1/3 of the population of European died, which was about 25 million people. I think we're about to read that right there. So I gave you the answer to that one. I was thinking we read about 1/2 of Florence died, right? Yep, the Black Death. It killed more than half of the people in the city, Florence, Italy. Okay, disappearing villages. The worst outbreak of the Black Death lasted for 4 years between 1347 and 1350. When it was over, Europe was a very different place. It is estimated that about 25 million people, or 1/3 of the population, died of the plague. Some areas were hit harder than others. In some regions, as many as 2/3 of the population died. In England alone, about 1,000 villages disappeared as a result of the plague. In some places, there were not enough people remaining to bury the dead. People who survived moved to larger towns. That'd be really sad. Okay, so let's look at this picture right here. The Black Death was so severe that in many places there were not enough coffins, and often no one to conduct funeral services. It took about 250 years for the population of Europe to recover. And so we can look at our map key right here, the spread of the Black Death. And these are showing us the different years. So it started this really dark maroon right here in Asia, and then it traveled to Constantinople next, and then here into Rome, Sicily, Florence, Paris, London, across the English Channel, all the way to the Scandinavia countries, right? Like Norway and Sweden. And even came back to Asia too, which is wild. Okay. So long-term effects. And this is where we're going to learn about how the population being much smaller affected the serfs and the feudal system. So once the Black Death had passed, people started to rebuild and restore their communities. Because so many people had died, there was a labor shortage. Now serfs could bargain for better working conditions. Now that there was less people to work, the serfs had a little bit more power, had a little bit more more to bargain with, right? Because there was less people. Over time, serfs were able to buy their own land as well as their freedom. Within 100 years, serfdom had almost entirely disappeared from Western Europe. The shortage, so not a lot of workers, also inspired people to try to invent labor-saving devices. Okay, so here is our next vocabulary word, labor-saving, meaning requiring a smaller amount of work or effort to get the same job done, right? So some of you guys might have a riding lawnmower for your big yard. That's a labor-saving device because it would be a lot quicker and a lot faster and easier to mow a larger lawn with a riding lawnmower than a push mower, right? And even the motorized push mower was a lot quicker than the old ways to cut grass. So new types of water mills and windmills were invented. Efforts to understand the horrors of the Black Death and to prevent it from happening encouraged an interest in science and medicine. Over time, cities developed more organized public health systems that helped them deal with the outbreak of diseases in general. Governments took more responsibility for founding hospitals. It's all good, right? So serfs, because they had more to bargain with, because there was less people to do the work, they were able to buy their own land and buy their own freedom, which this labor shortage helped them get rid of the feudal system, right? I think we're going to learn a little bit more about that, right? Yep, this is our last page right here. Our last section. The end of the Middle Ages. So before, we'll talk a little bit more about answering the big question after we read this last section, okay? End of the Middle Ages, because The feudal system was huge in the Middle Ages, so it seems like the end of the Middle Ages, the end of the feudal system. So remember how the 100 Years' War helped weaken feudalism? The Black Death also helped weaken feudal ties. Instead of feudal lords, kings, and their administrators helped keep law and order. By 1500, Europe had changed quite a lot. City and town governments had gained more influence. Knights in armor were on the way out. Cannons and cannonballs were on the way in. Universities were being established so that more people could study law, medicine, and other subjects. In Italy, educated people had begun to look back to the writings and art produced by ancient Greeks and Romans thousands of years earlier. The movement we call the Renaissance had begun. So the Renaissance is a trend in reviving classical art and literature in Europe beginning in the 1300s. So I think you can kind of say, in a way, Hojo has its own little renaissance, bringing back the classic stuff that has helped the world and specifically our country progress. Remembering the founding fathers and the Constitution, right? Those are a few examples. So there were more cities and more trade. Some traders began to look for more ways to trade with people outside of Europe. They ventured as far as Africa and then to the Americas. With the dawn of these new times, the world of feudalism, lords, vassals, serfs, knights, and courtly love slowly faded away. Okay? So, how did the Black Death affect feudalism? Many people died from the plague, so the overall population was smaller, right? There was a working shortage. So this created that shortage. So the condition for the serfs who did survive actually improved. And some were able to buy their own land and decline, which led to the decline in serfdom. The factors that led to the end of feudalism, because the Black Death killed so many people, there was a labor shortage, right? We just talked about, which allowed serfs to buy their own lands and freedom. Instead of feudal lords, there was kings and their administrators, which governed the land and the law and order. And then city and town governments gained more influence. And then universities allowed people to get their own education, which allowed them to learn and to make those labor-saving devices, and which caused this reviving of classical art and literature from in Europe. All right, so let's go back to the big question. Why do you think having a smaller population in Europe helped improve working conditions for serfs as well as weaken the feudal system? So we've talked a little bit about it, but remember the population, what happened to the population? Because the population did something, the serfs were allowed to do what? Right? They had more to bargain with because there were less serfs, and they were able to buy two things. They were able to buy blank and their own blank. Okay? Those are little hints and tips to help you answer the big question. But guys, that is it. This is our last chapter for medieval Europe. And then you have your unit assessment, and this is our last week. So I hope you guys are all working hard and trying to finish the quarter strong, get caught up, and pass all of your classes so that you can enjoy your Christmas break and not worry about falling behind in school, that you can be on the right path to graduating fourth grade, I guess, passing fourth grade and going on to fifth grade. And like I've said, and I think most, if not all the videos, I've been doing a lot of these recorded videos so that I can have time. And some of you guys have been reaching out to me. I'm able to see kind of how you're doing and what assignments you are completing, but I can't tell what you're not quite grasping that well because we're online. So I need you guys to reach out to me if you need help. I am here for you, and I'm trying to reach out to help you guys finish strong. So I will see you guys in the next video, whether that you're watching this, you're going to watch science or Robin Hood, and maybe some of you guys in the conference, the open office hours conference call, and some of you guys with one-on-one lessons. All right. See you guys. You guys are awesome.